guys, and welcome back to my channel. Long time no see. So today I am going to be doing a recent reads video. So basically I don't have, I spend a lot of my time reading, but I also do work a full-time job. So I don't think monthly, here's what I read this month works for me, because I don't read. I mean, I have things where I'll read 3 books in one day and then I won't read again for 3 weeks. So I just think that recent reads videos do better for me, just because there's no time limit on them. I can just upload whenever I want. Also, I don't have a stuffy nose, but every time without fail that I put on makeup, my nose gets stuffy, because that's how the world works. So the first couple books I read this year had to do with book research. I'm currently writing a book about someone who struggles with their weight and with mental health and just kind of the whole spectrum. So I was trying to find books that I could use for research purposes, like I just said. It was very hard, actually, and I wasn't expecting that. I just thought, we're in 2019, there will be books that I can find that relate to weight and mental health and just some struggles that people go through, and I really couldn't. So the first book I read this year is called Losing It by Erin Fry. I read it on my Kindle on my breaks at work, and I marked it. I highlighted it, I marked it, because I was using it for book research, but it didn't really do exactly what I needed it to do, but I still thought it was a pretty solid read. So the story is about a kid. His name is Bennett Robinson, and he's in 8th grade, I believe, and he is overweight and doesn't really bother him. He hangs out with his dad, who is also overweight, and his mom died. So he and his dad like to bond by watching baseball and eating perfect game food and just bond that way. So one day when they're watching the Dodgers game, his dad has a stroke. And that really hits Bennett hard, because he has no one else except for his dad. So he moves in with his mom's sister, I believe, his aunt, who is very health conscious and doesn't like the way that Bennett's dad has been raising him. And so it's kind of like a turmoil in him as to how he's grown up with his dad versus how his mom's sister wants for him to be. And it kind of takes you through the story of Bennett's struggles with coming so close to losing his dad after he already lost his mom, as well as being in a different environment and being with essentially a helicopter parent, a helicopter mom who wants to control everything that he does versus his dad who didn't, and it's just a lot for him to handle all at once. I gave the book a solid 3 out of 5. I thought it was a good read. I was using it for research purposes, so it's kind of different than leisurely reading a book, but I still thought it was a good read. It just didn't really tackle the issues that I really wanted it to, and sometimes it seemed kind of unrealistic. I just don't think it was exactly what I needed it to be research purposes wise, but I still thought it was a pretty solid read. The next book I read was The Earth, My Butt, and Other Big Round Things by Carolyn Macker. So this book follows the story of a girl named Virginia. She has an older brother who's essentially perfect in everything that he does. I believe she also has an older sister. We don't ever see much of her throughout the book. And then she has 2 parents who are we'll get to that. But she has 2 parents. Virginia is considered to be overweight. And this has always been a problem between her and her parents, because her parents always want to micromanage her. So she feels like her mom loves her brother and sister more because they're more of the perfect type, where she's like the black sheep of the family. And the story kind of follows her journey in learning to accept herself and basically help her parents accept her too. The concept of the story was great. I wasn't just using this one for research purposes. I was also very intrigued by it. And so I went into this book expecting a really good read, and that is not what I got. I gave this book, every time I think about it, my rating goes down. Right now I'm sitting between a 1.5 and a 2. And the reason I rated that book so low is because it is so unrealistic. So essentially, Virginia is 15 and she decides you know, maybe she could slim up a little bit. And her parents basically start encouraging these disordered eating habits. Like she starts putting up, like she lines her mirrors with pictures of like Victoria's Secret models and, you know, these really thin, basically unattainable images. Her mom's like, I'm so proud of you. And her dad's like, you're doing so well. And then her parents start to show interest in her because she's dieting and not in a healthy way. She starts to fall down this turmoil, and it's not realistic. Like, there's nothing realistic about this story. You know, people don't have a switch in their head that goes from eating unhealthy to eating healthy overnight. Like, as my personal trainer says, you start off slow. You don't cut the cold, like, not cut the cold turkey, that's not a saying. But it's just not a realistic way to do things. And that's what she did. She was like, I'm gonna be a health star. And then Virginia goes by what's called a fat girl code of conduct, which is basically like these rules she's made up, like you can't have a boyfriend, you're too fat, you can only be with someone in private, and then let them do whatever they want to you because you should be happy that they want to show interest in you because you're fat. And it was dark. It was very dark. And even when this boy was showing interest in her outside of her bedroom, she like wouldn't acknowledge him because it was against the fat girl code of conduct that she had made up. And then her brother does something absolutely god awful at school, gets kicked out, comes home, and her parents are just terrible people. Like, her parents are terrible people, and there's no other way to say that. Like, they worship her brother, and even after he's done this terrible thing to a girl, and they're like, oh, he didn't mean it. No. And he's like, I'm too perfect. I would have never done that kind of thing. I was just drunk. And so Virginia's like, that's not cool. Like, doesn't anybody else see this? And nobody's really giving her the time of day. And then Virginia like runs away and spends time with her best friend in another state. And my parents would have flown there, grabbed me by my hair, dragged me back home. Her parents are like, well, I guess since you already bought the ticket to go after we said no, it's no big deal. We have to let you go. That doesn't line up with any of their other parenting techniques throughout the whole book. But because she bought a ticket, she asked them to go, they said no. She bought a plane ticket with her savings. And her parents were like, well, you bought the ticket, it's non-refundable. Guess that is what it is. It's just, the way that they treat her versus the way they treat her brother already had me turned off. Like, they obviously treated her that way because of her weight. And then Virginia's like, screw you guys, and starts going out on this whole rebel thing. And is like, I'm fat and proud, which I would be all about. Like, be proud of who you are, love yourself. But she does it in such a, like, screw you kind of way. Like, it's like, I'm gonna do things my parents say I can't do, and I'm gonna dye my hair a weird color, even though I go to a very strict school who would have never allowed that. And I'm gonna get piercings, and it doesn't make any sense. And at the end, her mom is like, well, I'm proud of you for standing up for who you are. And again, that doesn't follow her mom's character type at all. And I just felt like it was very negative overall, which is why I gave it such a low rating. And again, the more I think about it, the more the rating goes down, because it just makes me so mad how this author tackles such a prevalent subject in today's society and doesn't do it well. All right, so my camera died in the middle of me speaking, but we're back in action. So the next book, I just prepared for another video and I'm out of breath. So the next book I read is Crank by Ellen Hopkins. I actually don't have my copy with me. I lent it to my cousin. So Crank follows the story of a 17-year-old named Christina. Christina lives with her mom. Her parents are divorced, but one summer her mom allows her to go stay with her dad for the summer. Her dad is a known drug addict. He's been in and out of that life for a long time, which is why her parents split in the first place, but her mom allows her to go stay with him for a summer. And as you can imagine, things go a little bit haywire. So I gave this book a 3 out of 5. I liked the realness of the book. The book never sugar-coated anything. It's written in verse, which I also really liked because I like books written in verse or written in poetry. But it never sugarcoated anything that was going on. It was very real, sometimes a little bit too real. It portrayed the life of Christina, who falls down the hole of crystal meth, and she will do anything to get it. So first she meets a boy when she's staying with her dad, which is when she falls down the crystal meth hole. The boy has a girlfriend, but Christina and him get together anyways, and then the girlfriend tries to commit suicide, and it really kind of wrecks the boy and it wrecks Christina. And this is like in the first quarter of the story, so it's very sharp, it's very real, and it really just kind of was a shocker. It was like, whoa, this is what we're doing, okay. After that, Christina goes back home to be with her mom. However, she is now hooked on crystal meth, thanks to her lovely dad and the influences he keeps in his life. So this book is kind of like a roller coaster of her getting meth, doing things to get meth. She has an alter ego when she's on meth that she calls Bree. So Bree is nothing like Christina. Christina is a very good girl. She studies, she works hard, she wants to go to college. Bree is very sexy, likes to test the waters, just do things that Christina normally wouldn't do. So Christina throughout the book does various things in order to get meth, including sleeping with boys, making new friends with dealers, that kind of thing. And then throughout the story, it's just very much a roller coaster of her feeling like crap on meth, but then unable to get out of the cycle of meth, and it's a lot. It's a lot. And then the ending of the book was a big pow, like never saw it coming, big shocker. I'm not sure if it was necessary. I feel like it was the setup for the second book, which is why they added that big ending in there, but I don't like it when authors do that. I feel like an entire story should be told in the first book, and then if there's a second book, it should be an entire second story. You shouldn't need to read the second book in order to finish the first book, if that makes sense. So it was a lot at the ending of a book that didn't get wrapped up, which is why I think I ended up giving it a 3, just because I felt a little bit empty at the end. I was like, wow, we got this roller coaster book that ended in a big way with no real ending. So it was a lot. So next I have What If It's Us by Becky Albertalli and Adam Silvera. This was our Wattpad Stars book of the book club book. This is the choice for our book club last time. And as you can see, I never finished it. I ended up DNFing it. I didn't like it. I thought the concept was really cute. I liked the fact that it was an LGBTQ plus book. I liked the idea of a little summer romance. I'm just not a fan of insta-love, and that's what this book is. It's insta-love, and then I don't know, I just overall didn't like it. I found Arthur to be very immature, a little bit, I don't know how to describe it. It was just like he and Ben met, and then Arthur was all up in his business. Why are you hanging out with your ex? Why are you doing things? Why am I good enough for you? And it's like you've known him for 2 weeks, like chill. And then Ben was very, I liked Ben. I liked his character, but he just felt so similar to Arthur. I felt like there was no difference. I felt like they were just the same person, just Arthur was more immature. My favorite character was actually Hudson, who was a side character, Ben's best friend. I really liked him. I thought he was hilarious. But overall, I just couldn't get into the book. It's just not my cup of tea. And it's really, really long for a contemporary. I just felt like it was never going to end, and I didn't see an ending that I would like at this point. So the next book I have is To Be Honest by Maggie Ann Martin. And this follows the story of Savannah. Savannah is a plus-size girl who lives in a household with her perfect older sister and her mother. Her father is no longer in the picture. So essentially, Savannah's mom went on a show, and it's supposed to equal that of The Biggest Loser, but it's called Shake the Weight. And it's essentially poking at The Biggest Loser's many flaws, including the 8-hour days of workouts, the emotional abuse, the screaming, the terrible diets, just everything in general, it's poking at that. So her mother has gone on this show, she's lost a ton of weight, she's in this new body, and Savannah feels like she can't relate to her mom anymore. She feels like her mom went on this show and came back an entirely different person. And her mom is constantly trying to get her to shake the weight. And Savannah's like, no, I'm happy with who I am. Please leave me alone. So her sister, Savannah's sister, is always there to be the middle person between them, but her sister moves out to go to college. So now it's just Savannah and her mom who haven't been getting along, and the tension starts to rise in the house. And so Savannah turns to her best friend, and she has a major crush on her best friend's cousin, has forever, but she meets this other boy at a family reunion with her best friend. It's her best friend's family reunion, and this other boy comes into the picture. I can't remember if he's a cousin. I think he is. He's a cousin. And he and Savannah are partnered for these games that they do at the family reunion, and it's an immediate, at first, connection, but then not so good. Savannah kind of pushes him away, he pushes back, and they have sort of a rocky start to their friendship. So the story kind of follows Savannah and George's relationship and how it unfolds, as well as her worsening relationship with her mom. I ended up giving this story a 4 out of 5. I really liked it. I thought it was a really good portrayal of what plus-size girls feel and go through. I liked Savannah's character. She was very studious. She wanted to be an engineer. She was also a journalist and wanted to capture the secrets at the school, so there was a whole side plot of her and her best friend sleuthing for journalism. I thought that was a really fun side plot. I liked George. He was super sweet. He didn't freak out when Savannah's family kind of imploded in the house, and he was there to witness it, and he just was really nice to Savannah the whole time. I just liked the characters as a whole. I just did have a few things I couldn't vibe with. One was that Savannah's mom was clearly suffering from an eating disorder, which is explored at the very end of the book, and I don't feel like it was given enough time to be explored. I feel like that was being pulled throughout the book, and then at the end it was kind of rushed. It was like, oh, and by the way, and I was like, you know, like I get it, that's not what the book revolved around, but I just felt like there were better ways that it could have been dealt with. And also at the end of the book, there's something that happens between Savannah and George that I thought was dumb. They had this huge fight, and it's just like this big blow up between them, and it ends up being over like the dumbest thing. That made me cringe, to be honest. I didn't like that, the plot line that the author chose to go for that. But overall, I really like the story, I really like the characters, and I would definitely recommend this book. Next, I have 5 Feet Apart by Rachael, Lippincott, Mikki, and Tobias Iaconis? I don't know. So you might recognize the title because this is currently a movie, but before I can see the movie, I always try to read the book. So for 5 Feet Apart, I picked up the book just so I could see the movie. It follows the story of Stella and Will. Both Stella and Will have cystic fibrosis. Stella is very strict with her cystic fibrosis. She takes her medicine every day. She does all of her treatments, and she even missed her school spring break because she knew that she was getting sick and couldn't risk to go on spring break, so she needed to go for treatment. Will is exactly the opposite. He doesn't want to do his treatments. He doesn't want to be there. His mom is forcing him to do this. He's 17, and he claims that as soon as he's 18, he's out and he's done. So we have these 2 very different characters who end up hospitalized at the same time on the same floor in the same hospital. And Stella is very quick to tell Will that his attitude isn't going to fly and that she needs him to focus on getting better. Will has no interest in doing so. And so that's where their relationship starts, and I love it. I loved everything, almost everything about this book, which is why I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I know it's gotten a lot of talk about it, dealing with cystic fibrosis. People with cystic fibrosis have had a lot to say about it. I don't have cystic fibrosis, So I won't be commenting on the realism of the story because I don't know, I've never experienced it. However, I will say that I'm happy that there was exposure, because I feel like nobody ever talks about cystic fibrosis, and I feel like we need to start speaking about things that people are struggling with, that physically and mentally, and I feel like this was a really important story, and I'm glad that it's being told. I loved the relationship between Stella and Will throughout the whole book. I sobbed, absolutely sobbed. My dad thought I was crazy towards the end of the book because there's a huge plot twist. And I just really loved these characters, and the only reason it wasn't a 5 out of 5 for me was the ending. I thought the ending was terrible. I thought this whole story was a big build-up, and then the ending just kind of fell through for me, and I was not a fan, 100% not. So that's the only reason I had to drop it down to a 4.5 out of 5. I just feel like the author could have done a little bit better with the ending. But overall, I love this story. I would highly recommend. It's a quick read. I think I read it in an afternoon, and I loved it. So my last read I have is Love and Other Carnivorous Plants by Florence Gonsalves. This follows the story of Dani. Dani has set off to go to Harvard for her Ivy League school dreams, and ends up dropping out to go to treatment for an eating disorder that she was not addressing. She doesn't tell anybody. She tells her best friend Sarah that she turned off her phone to study for finals, and she goes into treatment. So this follows the story after Dani gets back home. She reunites with her best friend Sarah. They had a huge fight before Dani went to treatment, and so kind of follows them hashing that out. Dani working up the courage to speak to Sarah, and then at Sarah's house in walks Bug. Bug's name is Sally, but she goes by Bug, and she was Dani's crush in treatment. They would send letters back and forth. Bug wrote her poems, and Dani has never admitted to anybody that she had a crush on a girl, especially in an eating disorder clinic. So when she finds out Bug and Sarah are friends, it really throws a wrench in her whole plan of not telling anybody she went to treatment, because Bug is very open about the fact that she has been. While Dani was in treatment for an eating disorder, Bug was there for suicidal ideations. The story kind of follows them rekindling what they had in treatment back in society, and seeing if it'll work. I gave this story a 3 out of 5. I liked the idea of the story. I liked following, again, the LGBTQ plus representation. I liked the idea of following these two girls who have left treatment, come back to their daily lives, and who want to rekindle something that they had. I love the idea of them both being friends with Sarah, who has no idea what's going on, and kind of that whole thing unraveling. I liked the concept of the story. However, I didn't love the execution. I think mostly it was just that I could not get into the writing style. I'm very much a dialogue and character person. I want to follow the characters, watch them grow. I want to hear what they're talking about. I want to be there with those characters. And so a lot of the times the author would skip over the dialogue and just tell you what was happening. And I don't vibe with that kind of writing style, so I think that drew me out of it. There was a huge plot twist in the early middle of the book, if that makes any sense. Like maybe a third of the way through the book that I never saw coming, and I don't understand why it needed to be done. I didn't like the plot twist. It didn't add anything to the story for me. In fact, it kind of took away from the story. There's one scene in particular that I really don't like, and it's Sarah's family gives Dani something really special to them, and Dani turns around and does something to it that I hated. I don't think that it was a good plot point. I don't think it helped move the story forward, and I think it made Dani look really selfish. So that kind of drew me out of the story. That was more towards the end of the story. Dani's mom is a helicopter mom, and I get it. Like, my mom would probably be too if I came back from an eating disorder clinic. But it got to the point to where, like, Dani is an adult, but she still was at home, and her mom was like, well, I have the right to speak to your therapist, and I have the right to decide what's best for you, and at the end of the day, she doesn't. And I think that was a huge plot point for me too, because Dani's an adult, so if her therapist is talking to her mom without Dani's permission, then that's a huge problem. And I don't feel like that was well addressed. And then her dad is just kind of absent. It's kind of explained later in the book, but in a way that kind of made me cringe because it was so late in the book that it just kind of felt like another plot point, and I didn't like that. That's why it was a 3-star read for me. I liked certain aspects of the book. I liked Bug's character. I didn't really vibe with Danny, but I feel like she's a character that, she's a very flawed character that you love and hate. I did not vibe with Sarah at all. I didn't get their friendship at all. I don't know. I liked the concept, just wasn't really there for the execution. So those are the books that I've read recently, since the beginning of the year until now. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up so I know to do more of them if you guys are interested in what books I'm reading. Comment down below if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts were. Maybe we agree, maybe we don't. I'd love to know. And I will see you guys on another Monday with another video. Have a great day. Bye. Now for a thumbnail. Currently balancing my camera on a stack of books because that's my life. Camera's on. Something there will work.